everyone, this is Jacqueline, and you're listening to Dark and Enlightened. Welcome back. I am here. I actually did my intro for once because I reminded myself 5 minutes ago that I needed to do this. But I'm super excited because me and Tom were just talking right before this. I always have some little chat with someone right before this, and he said something so specific around just grief and loss. And so I was just like, whatever, let's just get into this. So, Tom, I actually met you for the first time finally last year. So in 2025. And Tom and I have been in each other's orbits, so to speak,
Yeah.
where it's like I know someone that knows Tom or someone knows, whatever it might be, but we never actually had the chance to meet. And then this past year, we were both involved with Mobilize Recovery and their campus tour that was going on. And Tom was speaking at a few events that we were doing. And we finally met in New Hampshire,
Yeah. In the
of all
rain.
places, in the rain, which the event was it was one of our outdoor events where it was like, yeah, it's 100% chance of rain, which honestly, though, I was really surprised by the amount of people that still showed up because people just fucking show
That's
up.
that's recovery, man. We show up, and I said the same thing. I walked across the street. It was like, oh, there's gonna be nobody in this park. It was packed, and we
Right.
had so much fun. Oh
Right,
my
and
God.
and they had a drag show, which was even more
Yeah.
fun.
In New Hampshire. In New
Exactly,
Hampshire. It
in
was
the
just so
rain.
it was so beautiful. It was like,
And then afterwards, because where we were at, is not necessarily a sprawling metropolis. We went to a local, pizza, sort of like sports bar type place, and we got to, sit and have a couple hours where we watched football and talked about a bunch of things, and, we really, it's nice to talk to another fucking sibling. It is so nice to talk
oh
to another
man.
sibling it's so nice to talk to someone else in the shitty club because that's what I call it. I'll say oh,
Yeah.
it's the Dead Siblings Club, the DSC. And so there's just this unknown or unspoken, just dark grief that we all, or dark humor and grief that we all carry that's slightly different from everybody else in our family. But before we hop into that, I'm sure there's more to you than just me meeting you and we had pizza together and it was fun. If you want to just explain a little about what you do.
Yeah, truly, it is, I just lived so much of my life in isolation and by I don't mean like in some cave. I mean
Right.
like this internal, I was putting so much effort to try to fit in, and it
Yep.
was just exhausting and tiring, and damaged relationships that I didn't see. And now I just get to be this, my kids are, I say my authentic self. My kids are, who just see me as their dad. They're like, "What are you talking about? You're authentic. Like
Right.
you're always,
You've always
you're
been
the
this way.
same." I'm like, "I'm not the same. You don't see this?" So I don't know, just living this like, oh my God, I get to be myself, and I'm finding others. I'm put myself in this space where I started out being an advocate and talking about my little shit, but now I'm just talking about recovery, however it looks for everyone, and I'm just collecting all of these, like suddenly I want to be on the island of misfit toys. Like
Yeah.
I like this. I want to stay here.
Right.
Like,
Because we were talking about how when I was younger, I was a nerd. I absolutely was honor roll, hung out with nerdy kids. Popular kids only talked to me in class because I had the answers, and outside class they ignored me. And so
yeah,
now it's weird to be I'm gonna be almost 42 in a space where people think that I'm cool or people think that I'm living the rock star life. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, I've never been perceived as cool. I've known I'm not cool. I like weird shit and all of that. But
yeah.
it's weird that now and I say outcasts in the sense of I internalized so much myself. It was very much a people pleasing tactic. But with that, I realized I'm not really that fucking great. And it's like, have I always been this great and now people are just paying attention? Or did I get great? And then I get into a fucking spiral of shit.
Oh, and the thing is that's always there. That self-doubt.
Hmm.
I love that I'm not consumed by it, but I'm like, I hear
Yes.
you. You're there. I see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes up. But again, a lot of that self-doubt came from, the only conversation I was having was, internally in my own head,
Yeah.
and now I am, connecting with people. I've been talking a word that my brothers who are from the improv world and acting world, taught me the word ensemble, and
Yeah.
I love collecting this ensemble of like, and when I say what makes your ensemble like really amazing is everyone's otherness that they
Yes.
bring to your
Mhm.
ensemble.
Yeah.
Like if you feel uncomfortable of othering people like that, is that uncomfortable? Yeah, it's because you start bringing that in. I'm like, oh man. And it's not so much that I'm so cool.
Mhm.
It's that I am just surrounded by just all these really interesting. My curious mind is never been
Yes.
worked like it
I know.
has been. And
And that's the best way to put it is because so often people don't necessarily ask to understand. They're not curious. They ask to like criticize or they're waiting to like, hey, wait, can I pounce on it? So it's so nice when I hear other people go, I'm curious because
yeah,
that automatically tells me you're not coming in with judgment. You're not coming with a preconceived
yeah.
notion. You want to learn.
It's so funny because you referenced New Hampshire and this drag show that that we saw. I grew up in the Midwest in
Hmm.
Wisconsin in this conservative Catholic household where like that was my first exposure was like Kiss. Like I
Yeah.
like the music, but what's going on here? Like I don't get
The
this.
cognitive dissonance of it. Like,
And there's like a couple of high school buddies of mine that like, I love Kiss. Like, yeah, okay, but you don't think they're a little weird like that? Yeah, I like the music too.
yeah.
I had a family full of entertainers prop up like I didn't know I was the oldest, so I didn't know that was an option. But um, I got
This
to
is
appreciate that, and then I'm sitting there in New Hampshire, looking at these people with just such joy, and expression. And I wanted to know more about, that's what I saw.
and I love that you bring up that you're the oldest because we're both the oldest. And I usually speak to eldest daughters, and we're always like, like we obviously will commiserate on a lot of shit because females also have different expectation than males. But what I was curious about is again being the oldest. We don't have options per se. We need to just jump in and help out. Like we are the third parent. With you being the oldest, had you gotten into advocacy
Yeah.
at any point before Chris had passed?
And not per se, we kind of grew up in kind of a muted social justice kind of
Mm,
environment in the sense, but it was mostly, steeped in our, Catholic religion, like what's right or what's wrong. But that meant that it came with all sorts of judgments and like,
yep.
this is the right way. So
Mhm.
I knew to care about, you know, uh, certain populations or people, but it was always carrying in a, um,
Like in a churchy way, like in a
yeah,
yeah, because I grew up Catholic as well, and of course everything is like there's a punishment you shouldn't do. Everything's like punitive based or scary.
or one of the things I heard my father say, and I used to say it all the time, was, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." So, like, you
Mm,
got the grace, but they didn't. Is that what you're
right,
saying?
right.
Like, what's going on here? Like that?
I think it's so weird, like, when you, again, grow up in these generations that, again, don't confront any of their stuff or just like
Yeah,
that's just their behavior. And what's so hard is that, I feel like it's always major events, weddings and funerals. And so, like, when a death happens, it affects everyone in the family so fucking different. And I
yeah,
feel like for the eldest, it's like the most not necessarily revolting, like not I'm revolting like gross, but like we
yeah.
revolt
No,
against
this is
the
enough of
system.
this. Yeah. And I did start that when Chris and I were both working in New York while I was working. He was playing, but when we were both in
I
New
love
York,
this is why I love talking to eldest fucking
uh,
siblings because
oh,
like tell the truth. Like he wasn't fucking
people are
doing shit.
shocked. So I'm like, I'm the older brother. I'm allowed to say these
Right.
things still, but I was seeing him struggle, and my family was out. I was that first
Yep,
responder.
me
I
too.
had to deal with this, and an older brother.
Mm.
I showed a letter I wrote to my parents, when we were out in New York and Chris was on SNL and like, hey, we got to deal with this stuff. And my daughter said, like, that's incredible. What, you wrote this letter to your parents?
Yeah.
What did it take to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I can't, I just remember like, are you not seeing this? Like
Right.
this guy
And it's
needs help.
and it's not even like, once you're the eldest, like, bravery and courage aren't even associated with us anymore because we're just the guinea pigs. We're the trials for fucking everything. So, like, we are forced to go first. We are first to,
Yeah.
make the assessment. And so very similar to you, I was like the liaison between me and my parents. I'm like, "He lives in your home. Do you not
Yeah.
see this going on?" And I realize it's a matter of ignorance is bliss sometimes, and
You
that
know what else
sucks.
was, you know what else was going on at that time too? I was just kind of, being on my own, starting my own, like, this is me now. And I had been filled with this kind of family narrative. This is who you have to be a
Mm,
Farley, and, anything that doesn't meet that is buried, ignored.
yeah. Mhm.
And I, like I've got to be like this, captain of industry business guy on this track. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And
Yeah.
and then like with Chris, it's like then we had to protect his,
Yes.
his career.
Mhm.
Like, oh, we've got to create a narrative around that. I'm like, but this guy's struggling.
Yes,
Dead. Like,
mhm.
I don't care about the narrative. I care about
Who
him.
cares how it fucking looks? Like, who
Right.
ca and that's I'm actually curious about that. What did you do before advocacy? What was your business world
Huh.
position?
I worked in New York. Yeah. I graduated from Georgetown with a degree in marketing.
I have a degree in
So
marketing too.
yeah,
Shut
so
up. Okay.
like if I got to be around all these smart overachievers at Georgetown, I'm going to go to the creative,
Uh-huh.
part of. So I did that, and then of course this was the mid to late '80s. Finance was the thing. I just wanted to continue the fun
Yeah.
with my friends. I just followed everyone up to
Yeah.
New York and worked on Wall Street in banking. Like
Yeah.
I hate numbers. Like why would I do that? Just to because
But
I
it
was
was
trying to.
prescribed, it was
Yep.
this prescribed path of you're the oldest, find security, financial
Yep.
security. I don't know if this was big for you going up because my parents are both Catholic, but my dad is Irish and my mom's Filipino. So very different, like, cultures, so to speak, in the
Yeah.
sense. I mean, both like, they're both like rebellious, I will say this. But the big thing was always like the appearance for both cultures is the big deal. Don't let anyone know. Don't make people see this. If they ask about Mark, just say that he's sick. And like that would just to my core, like this charade we were all
It's
putting on.
funny. We had the same thing, except that my father was from Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and my mother's Boston Irish.
Okay.
So, and you see this in Chris. Chris had this very, my dad he loved people. He had that Midwestern nice thing.
Yep.
But my mom was this crazy Boston Irish, like just, just didn't care what came out of her mouth. Like she would just say stuff. And dad was very, very like, respectful. And my mom was just like, yeah, hey,
Yeah.
Chris just had that same thing, and we all did.
Yeah.
I just, as the oldest, felt I had to mute the
Mhm.
the Boston side more.
And it's like you had to again, you're almost like the official family representative. And so it's like
Yeah,
you're so you have to like you're the public facing person. Everything has to look good. You always have to look like you're succeeding. You always have to look like whatever. And then death happens and then you're just like, I don't fucking care anymore. I don't care.
yeah.
And for you, like did you leave like the whole financial industry
No,
before he had passed or it was
well,
after he had
no,
Okay.
after he's passed. And so here's the thing, like all of that leading up, as you said, I was Tom Farley Jr. So I had
Mm,
to be this junior version of this guy. My father was a businessman and all that kind of stuff. And then after Chris, then I became somebody's brother on top of that. I got completely lost. I had to
like
be
your
that
identity
person.
gone. It doesn't
Gone. Yeah.
exist. Yeah.
How I dug out from that, I have no idea. Like,
Honestly.
recovery,
No,
recovery.
and let's be clear here as well because a lot of people would tell me, "God, Mark was so funny. Mark was just like he's like the one person that made you feel important in a room, blah blah blah." I'm like, who the fuck do you think he learned that from? Like, who do you think he got that from? He's so funny. Who the fuck do you think he watched TV with? Who do you think changed the channels? Like, and do you, it's okay if we have this pettiness. We're allowed to, because it's like, oh, your brother was so funny. So the fuck am I, dude? Like,
yeah, when people ask me all the time, was he the funniest in the family? It's like, no.
no.
And definitely not when I had to share a bedroom with him. I didn't find
you.
that funny at all.
And that's the fucking truth, though. Everyone wants to, like, again, because that's what they saw, you know, the optics of it. That's what they remember. And that's great. But when I die, are you going to remember me as the funny person, or as the person who, like, she always helped a lot? You know what I mean? Like, I want my own fucking identity.
Seriously. So we know it's there, but nobody else sees it. And like, why do I feel this way? And your first response is, well, I don't know why or what's causing this. I know how to numb it.
Yep.
I know how to silence it for a little bit. My Irish roots taught me how to do that in the best of ways. So
yeah. And even with that, because this was a very specific situation that came up with me and my brother, where his substance use really got out of control to the point where my stupid ass was like, hey, I watched the show Intervention a bunch of times, and I think we should do this, like a fucking idiot. Okay. So I'm not thinking, I'm not sitting here thinking like these outcomes could be different than the TV show, because I'm so fucking naive. No one's talking about heroin addiction at this point. This was what, 2013, 2012. No one's openly talking about it, I should say. And so I go, yeah, let's fucking stage an intervention. I'll run it. So fucking dumb. So I start to do this thing based on what I saw on Intervention. And when I started to bring up his substance use, he was like, you have some fucking room to talk. He's like, you got a DUI. I was just like thrown immediately by that, because that's not me. And my brother never, if we fought, it was like over the remote. That's mine. It's my turn to play the game. It was never like that deep of a cut. And so when he did that, and it was like a diversion to like, hey, look at her, she's fucked up too. Did you ever have those moments with Chris where if there was any sort of attempt at a, I don't want to say intervention, but something, did you find that there was ever instances like that where, again, drinking's normal, so was that deflected back on you in some way?
I remember, attempts at intervention, or like my father was like, well, I can't understand why he can't like control his drinking. Control his drinking, because that's one of my dad. I'm like, Dad, he's taking heroin.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
I'm like, you will never understand this. And I remember one time we were on it was a family vacation. We were all up northern Wisconsin in the winter. It was just, let's get out of here and let's go up north. And I just got married, so I brought my wife. It's like, this is my family.
Yeah.
Where do you see this? And Chris just went off. Like, he just like, we found him like passed out on the floor of the living room. And so my dad goes, well, we got to talk about this. I go, yeah, I think we should. All right, at dinner tonight. So we go out to the supper club, Wisconsin Supper Club. We're going to talk about Chris's drinking. It's like, let's get a drink order in first. And I'm like, because now I had an outsider there.
Yeah.
And I was looking at, my new, we might have even just been engaged at that point. And I'm like, we'll talk about this later. Like, but take notes, because you're going to see some stuff. And like, it was the most uncomfortable dinner. Like,
was there ever actually any discussion about it? Or was it just
it was also, my parents were were handling it.
Yes. We've got it.
Like, and every time you tried to intervene, like, I'm out here, I can help. I'm like, we got it.
Yeah. Was there like a certain point after he passed that, again, you're working, because everyone should just go back to normal, after the funeral, let's all fucking just get back to normal and hit our metrics. Was there a certain point where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Was there like any situation that stands out to you that you're like, I need to get the fuck out of here?
Right after Chris died, my dad created the Chris Farley Foundation, because people were like, can we get money? And he didn't know what to do with it. We had some, not a lot, and he gave some to a scholarship at Marquette. It was just kind of like, almost like in his name, we're going to do good works. And then a year later, after Chris died, my dad died,
Oh my gosh.
and yeah,
Fuck.
yeah, no, but the trauma didn't die with them.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm kidding. I'm
No,
kidding.
but it's for real. Like, let's be
But
honest here.
that's when
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you know what? I can take this. So I can let me take a run at this. I'm going to run the foundation,
Mhm.
and I started to really go into schools, teach. It was more prevention based
Yeah.
in Chris's name, and that's when I really started. It was that like taking over the foundation. I was still trying to. I still thought I had to have a real job,
Yeah,
but I was
exactly.
like, man, going into schools, talking about these things, and also being able to talk about these serious issues. My brother had just died, but like I gotta use humor. I'm sorry.
Yes,
It's the only language I know. And I think
exactly.
we probably need a little bit of that levity. And so I was like, how do I do this? And I looked at my brothers who learned improv. I'm like, and you know, creating your ensemble, creating a connection. I'm like, I'm gonna go into schools, teach improv as a means to connect and find your authentic self, even though I didn't even know what that was
Isn't that so
about.
what? But we can teach. We just don't take our own fucking lesson or our own
No,
advice
I
till
know.
years later. Yeah.
And it was interesting though, like there was a good 15, 20 years that I was doing that. And gradually I gave up, my like you're not in finance.
Yes.
Stop doing that.
Your
And
identity was no longer tied to like your
yeah.
job anymore.
And I realized that I was going into schools talking about prevention, talking about communication, but I was somebody that didn't know how couldn't communicate, with
Mhm.
with my wife, hence
Yeah.
the divorce.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and I was drinking. So I stopped. I was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't drink. So I stopped drinking and I put together like 4 or 5 years in blocks just being sober, which is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Soon as stress comes back in your life or,
Mhm.
or even a happy moment, like, like a wedding,
Right.
I'm like,
Mhm.
I know how to
Right.
manage these extreme emotions, which I didn't want to
Exactly.
go there, is I numbed it. And so I would have this roller coaster and I couldn't figure it out. Like, but I'm not drinking. Isn't that
Right.
the hardest thing I'm doing? Why
Right.
am I getting no credit for that? I was getting no credit because I was still causing train wrecks and broken relationships. And I'm like,
Yeah. And it's interesting when people don't necessarily correlate like that once you get further along, you realize the drinking is being caused by, something deeper or whatever that
yeah.
you haven't necessarily dealt with. But I found that like for me, what you said just totally resonated where it was like, if it was like a celebration, let's drink and eat. Eat food has always been like a coping mechanism.
Oh,
Sure.
food is love.
Yeah,
Food is love.
exactly. So
Yeah.
let's drink and eat. I've had a shitty day. Let's drink and eat. I've had a neutral day. Those didn't happen too often, but I was just like, I guess I don't need to drink
Well,
or eat a
I
lot.
ate, and actually, in my family, that's a bigger problem than the drinking and
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
substances is the food, because you can give up one, you have to eat. But I
Right.
ate and I drank, driven both of those areas. What was driving me was like, what's going to make me happy? What's going to
Yes.
manage this emotion? And I used drinking to do that, the same way I used eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were going to schools and you took over the foundation, at that point you had still been, drinking at whatever level. At what point were you finally like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore? Because I hate to say, like, what's your recovery date? Because a lot of times people will say,
I
like,
guess, good point.
sometimes people will say, like, "Oh, this is the day I stopped using substances, but this is the day I,
Yeah.
fucking it all clicked here." So for you, like, when did you feel like you were getting to a spot where you're no longer digging in the ground, like living in some fucking crypt or grave, and now you're like, "I wanna crawl out,
Yeah.
actually."
Well, all during the time, when I was just being sober, I would go into meetings, AA meetings, and I'm like, okay, everyone says I got this part of it. So I would go in and it was just like in my family. I could always point to the person on the other side sharing, and I'm like, that guy drinks more than me.
Yeah.
And he takes drugs. I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be here. And we did the same thing with Chris. It's like, we're not that bad.
Oh
So I
my
guess we're
god.
okay. And oh my God, we weren't okay. And so we couldn't really help Chris as much as we could have or wanted to, because we were afraid of being honest about our own
Exactly.
issues. And we didn't want to go there. So we made it all Chris's problems. And
Yep.
when it was my turn to try that, I separated myself. My barometer was drinking, and it just continued just for so long. And then about 7, 8 years ago, I got to this point where like, all right, again, this is not, my life is not getting better. And
Yeah.
this woman who uh, ran a clinic here in Madison. I used to go and teach her teen IOPs improv, and I did a lot of work with her. She happened to call me up out of the blue, and she goes, we haven't talked. I lost track. How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing great. I haven't had a drink in 4 months." Expecting
Yeah.
a lot more applause than I got. And she goes, "That's great. Well, we should have coffee." And I go, "I'd love to have coffee.
Yeah.
I need a connection."
Yeah.
She goes, meet me Saturday morning, 9 o'clock in the basement of the Presbyterian Church." I'm like, "God damn it.
God damn.
Why are you doing this?" Yeah.
You're like, what cafe should we go to?
Like, I want a coffee. You'll get coffee. But my second thought after that was, this is a woman who has helped, I've watched her help
Yeah.
so many people in our community. I'm like, how do you say no to that? It was my first higher power
Hmm.
that, it was my first, like, higher power doesn't necessarily mean God.
Yes.
It
Hmm.
was my first, like, stepping out of that shadow too. So I'm
Yes.
like, okay, I said yes. And I went, and instead of hearing how much somebody was, their life
Hmm.
in drinking or drug, I would like, I've had broken relationships like that person. I've
Yeah.
had job loss like that person. I'm like, I just need to be sober to work
Yeah.
on all this stuff. It stopped being staying sober almost immediately.
That's a great
I
way
wanted
that you
this.
describe it, though, where it's like again, my brother unfortunately was a scapegoat for me at times. I'm like, well, I'm not fucking shooting heroin. I'm not doing this. I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. And it's easy to do that. And it's like, I'm honest about my shitty behavior because it's also like I was in denial of a lot of things myself. But I don't think people understand how much of an impossible situation we get put in as a sibling to A, be a sibling, but B, then have this caretaker responsibility that's, like, much more overwhelming than,
Yeah.
like, "Yo, let's go shoot the shit." It's like, "I don't want you to fucking die," and those conversations get harder to have when you're no longer playing just the sibling like, we're just playing video games together, or we're just fucking doing improv together. Now you're crisis management,
Yeah.
and all these other things.
I got attention, but I got attention because I was somebody's brother.
Yes.
And that was, it was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is great. I'm doing good work, and I'm being recognized." I'm like, "No, you're being recognized as the brother of."
Yes. That
And
Yep.
I didn't
Mhm.
like that either.
Yeah.
So when I finally started telling my own story and breaking away from that, I started to give myself all of this grace that I
Yeah.
learned in recovery, and all of this, like, acceptance and rigorous honesty, gratitude. And I'm like, if I can give myself that grace, why can't I give that? I still can give that to Chris.
Yeah.
It allowed me to separate this brother with an addiction
Yes.
from this brother that I love, because if that person was connected, the emotional roller coaster was like,
Yes.
I need the negative emotions and the regrets
Mhm.
and the anger and all that stuff. I want to be with that
Yeah.
person because I
Yeah.
can forgive that person.
Yep.
And then I'm left with this brother and now that I had this brother
Yeah.
back, that relationship continues to grow to this day.
Yeah.
And what a
Mhm.
gift that is. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
people who lose somebody, it's over, and you kind of go on
Mhm.
with your life, or they lose somebody to this disease, and they make, drugs the enemy, fentanyl
Right.
bad. I'm like, yeah, you know what?
It's not
You're
you're looking the
lost.
wrong way. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Exactly.
glad work that has to be done, and that's wonderful that, we still have to do that. But to lose this person that you love in the process, yeah,
Yeah.
I could have gone down that road, and I'm grateful that I didn't.
Yeah. And that's a great point coming into the space. Unfortunately, your last name already is like a telltale to someone. So they'll already go, Chris Farley. You're not your identity because someone recognizes your name. Thankfully, my last name is Kane. My maiden name is Kane, which is way cooler than Brown. No offense to my husband. But Jacqueline Kane sounds way fucking cooler than Jacqueline Brown.
I'll
Thank
give
you.
you that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I kept it as my middle name, and so now Jacqueline Kane Brown sounds very snooty, but whatever, that's fine.
It's kinda cool. I
Yeah,
like it.
I like it. I'm starting to embrace it because I realize, well, that's the projection of what I thought I would be, and I'm at the exact opposite of snooty. So anyway, But going back to this idea of this is your identity in this space. And so, like, when I came into the recovery space, I was someone's brother. I was advocating as a family member, as
Yeah.
a sibling, as this, whatever. And as I got deeper in and I realized I was doing a lot more work on myself, I'm going to say it. I don't care how shitty it sounds. I started to realize how many people in the advocacy space have not done work on themselves. And that work can translate into potentially pushing for things that can harm other people because this work in here hasn't been dealt with. So it's easy to blame. Let's blame
Yep.
everyone and everything. And so for me, I decided to step back from family advocacy because I found that it was no longer a place of where I could find like almost like guaranteed like connection in the same sense. But have found in the last couple of years, the family advocacy space has become very divided in terms of
Yeah.
the way that fentanyl is viewed, for example, or
Right.
how
Right.
punishment, quote, air quotes, should be handled. And so when I stepped back from that and I was like, well, fuck, I'm not Mark's sister. I'm not a family advocate since I'm stepping back from this role.
Yeah.
Who the fuck am I? And there was a period where I'm like, I don't know if me alone is enough. You know what I mean? Like my story and like what I've gone through. Because again, you have a sibling who, like, here's a tragic story. People are going to listen. Of course, they're going to listen. I'm living in a tragic story. And to me, this is my comeback story. But other people don't see that. And like
Yeah.
for you, like I see that as a comeback story, especially like for you to out of the gate just be like, well, I'm going to teach improv. What the fuck? Like, who would think of that and go, hey, I'm going to teach other people to smile and have joy and be in the
Joy.
moment? Like, that's fucking amazing, dude. Like,
Yeah.
to want
Thank
to,
you.
we can't experience that. We're so numb. But I could teach you how to, like, have the joy in the moment. And, like, I know you had mentioned going to, like, high schools and stuff like that. How was that, like, received with because you know how teenagers can be kind of like assholes and they're like, this is weird. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
So the beautiful thing about improv is it's taught by these games that were created, these
Mhm.
interactive things. So I would bring these students up and put them through a couple of these games, and yes, they were fun and they're active, and and sometimes they don't necessarily have to be funny, but it's fun. After a couple times, I go, here's what I want you to focus on. And like the first time we did it, somebody would make a mistake and we'd laugh.
Yeah.
We laugh at ourselves or we
Yep.
laugh at that person. But as the ensemble started to form, and you were allowed to make mistakes because the other people have your back,
Yeah.
and like, what does that feel like? I not having more than like an hour and a half to do this, and
Yeah.
I would just brush the surface, but I'm like, it's all about how does it feel to be accepted by who you are and to
Yes.
trust the people around you, your ensemble. It's like that's where we're
Yeah.
trying to get to, and um, when you are able to all of a sudden be surrounded by people that like you can make a mistake and they're like, it's
Who fucking
okay,
cares?
I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah,
Mhm.
we're it's progress, not perfection.
Yes. And I would say all eldest people are perfectionists. I'm not gonna say that because some people just rebel against it, like, "Fuck this, I'm just gonna go against things." But
But perfectly.
yeah, exactly, but I'm gonna do it perfect. It's I'm gonna fuck around so perfectly. So it's like we so want this perfection because we define ourselves by the accomplishment or whatever the thing that's supposed to come with it, the feelings that should come with it. But I would say that to people, "Oh, guys, probably was not for perfect." I didn't believe that shit, but I would, like, say that to other people,
Oh
and
yeah.
I realize it I actually do live it now, but only in the last couple of years. Like, do I say that and I go, "Yeah, I'm okay with that," but I have to pause still.
But what I learned is like, I've heard this come out of my mouth enough times, but I've got to feel it.
Yes.
I've got to feel it
Mhm.
to really incorporate it. Otherwise, it's just words. If you go to enough meetings, like you've heard the word serenity enough
Yep.
times to make it like, and we say it all the time. And I'm like, I still don't know what it means. And I'm
Right.
like, what is it like? My early part of my adult life spent in New York. I learned, became a New York driver really quickly. And when
Yeah.
I moved back to the Midwest, I took that with me. I was like, it was my first amends I had to make to my family. It's like, I'm so sorry you had to be in the car with me. And like, yeah, it was horrible.
Exactly.
And so now I learned to just plant myself in the slow lane, in the right lane. And when the car is going whizzing by me at 90, I'm like, I can't control that. I can't. And turn the radio up, and I'm like, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, is this serenity? This is what serenity is.
It's so fucking weird how similar we are because I lived life in the fucking left lane. Like that is literally, I cannot stop because if I stop, everything falls apart. It's like you have that little bit of gas left in your tank, so you're just trying to
Yeah.
gun it. And then my gas ran out because I got an autoimmune, and then I was forced to sit with myself in a fucking hospital. And so then I
Yeah.
was like, there's literally no gas left. But I found that now my husband will be, driving and he'll be in the left lane and I'll see like coming, I'm always hyper vigilant. I see someone coming from behind us. I'm like, move to the right. And I'm like, who cares? Let's just fucking chill. We don't
Yeah.
need a rush,
Chill.
dude. I
Here's where
was never like that.
I know, never. And I took it a step further. Now when I go to the grocery store, I'll find the longest line and park myself there. And like,
Really?
that's hard. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, he's got 16 items. Like I counted, and I'm like there, I still don't want to. Just because I'm in this long line doesn't mean I want to have a conversation with you.
Yes.
We're not talking still, but being present and
Right.
I'm observing,
Right.
and I'm not trying to think what
What's
I
the next
need to
thing?
do
Mhm.
10 minutes from now. Like I need to get through this line so I can do this. I'm like, no, I'm here,
Yes.
and that's what I'm doing.
And it's been so fucking hard though, right? To like finally be present. Because
Yeah.
I feel like when we are in our roles in our family, we're always forward thinking because we're always thinking to plan against a disaster. Or our perfectionist ass is thinking in the past of we fucked up and we should have done this better or should have whatever. You know what I mean? I could never just be content with who the fuck I was now until the
Yeah.
last 2 years.
You know what's interesting? I am still, because of my ADHD, I still hate small talk.
Yes.
I can't stand it.
Can't fucking stand it.
Because of that, I used to avoid conversations that I used to call like I'm working the room, because
Yeah.
I would just go, we're done here.
Yeah,
and I'd go to the
exactly.
next. But now I'm like, I've pivoted over to my curious mind and say, okay, I don't have to enable this small talk. It's like, yes, the weather's beautiful.
Yes, I'm the exact same fucking way. Like I would be like, no one fucking talk to me. I would try to look like the biggest fucking bitch as possible. And then if someone were trying to talk to me, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I would just get so irritated. And I will catch myself doing that still now because obviously I'm not perfect. And then I pause and I go, this person's just trying to connect.
Yeah.
They're just trying to connect. I'm not in the mood to connect.
The other thing that helps that is so I grew up, I was given this is be with your tribe. And here's what your tribe looks like. My tribe was everyone that, came from my neighborhood, went to the schools I went to the church I went to the country clubs I went to, all this kind of, their fathers were all heads of some company. My tribe was all white. That now my tribe didn't have tattoos. My tribe had all their teeth. And now I look at my tribe like there's tattoos everywhere. Yeah. There's no teeth. It's like, I love you people, because I look for those interesting, like this person, I'm not going to get small talk.
Yes,
I'm going to get something really interesting.
And one parallel I kind of made, and I don't know if this was intentional or if you had even thought about it, but when my brother passed, the one thing that I always loved about him, that everyone loved about him, that I will say that I did not have, was his authenticity. I know that's such a fucking buzzword now, but he could just be so fucking blunt with no filter. And I'd be like, Mark, you need to fucking chill on that. Like I would be the filter for him. So when he died, I was like, I can't filter anymore. I'm going to carry that on, that authenticity. Because again, I taught that to him. I just don't exhibit it outside the household. But I was like, all right, this is my way that I can pay like my homage to him or to keep him alive, is to be true to me. So when you told me that you wanted to teach improv to like, sorry, I'm emotional just think like to build an ensemble,
Yeah.
It's like you're reassembling like your siblings, in some sort of way, like the spirit of
my
that.
God, yeah.
And And humor, again, because me, my brother, and my sister, funniest fucking people. Like, the 3 of us in the room together, so
Yeah.
fucking great, and I wish, like, people could have seen that. But the way that you have taken that spirit of what obviously what he was known for, humor and all of that, but in your way, and teaching that, I just think is really fucking beautiful because I think we both took something that we
Yeah.
really appreciate about our siblings, and that's how they live on, through.
Well, in my family, humor was a coping mechanism.
Yes.
It kept us from going to the real tough emotions.
Yeah.
We laughed at everything. We laughed, when somebody was stressed out, we laughed. When somebody, fell and hurt themselves, we laughed.
Yeah.
Not to be mean, we just didn't want. We didn't like the empathy and the
You're right.
and the. If somebody was experiencing joy, we laughed,
Yeah.
which isn't the same thing. We couldn't go to the high end. We had to stay
Yes.
in this. Chris was the first one to use his humor to connect and
Yes.
because he always had this ensemble. When I was a senior in high school, he was a sophomore, and I absolutely just hated seeing him. He was constantly surrounded by this ensemble, these great, great guys, and I was struggling
Yeah.
to find friends, and he's just doing it normally. And I thought he existed in life to push my buttons.
Yeah.
And what he was doing is every time I was being inauthentic, trying to be this, preppy, whatever guy,
Yes.
he
Mhm.
would come in and do something, and I would get so pissed. And I realized all these years later that he was just, you know, saying, Tommy, just be yourself,
Yes.
and here's this guy, and I think we love him and remember him for all these characters, but he
Yeah.
was just being himself. He
Yes.
was bringing himself to all these characters, and I was trying to be a character.
Yes. That's exactly it. I was trying to fit the mold of who my parents wanted me to be,
There, yeah.
who everyone wanted me to be, as the reliable, dependable, solves a problem, jumps into every crisis, and does it smiling and asks if you're hungry and if I can help in any fucking way. And then who's helping me? No one. But that's
Yeah.
the other problem too, is that when you become so independent and you become so internalized about all your shit, when people go, "Oh, you just ask for help." Are you fucking insane? I don't know how to ask for help. Like, I only started practicing that this past year, and that was so awkward to ask people for
Yeah.
help, like, in a
Yeah.
genuine way. Not like, "Can you carry this for me?" But like, "Could you hop on a phone call with me and, talk to me about this thing?" Like, that's so fucking awkward for me, like, to ask someone's time. That's that's the big thing.
Yeah, and you know what? When I look back too, also, because I was trying to be this person, and Chris was just trying to be himself, and he was pushing my buttons the whole time. And because I was reacting to that, if I'm honest, I probably wasn't the best older brother
Yeah, I absolutely
that I
wasn't the
could have
best.
been. But you
Mhm.
know what? I am now.
Yeah,
And, I still get that opportunity, like, to as I said, that relationship continues to grow,
yeah,
even though he's not physically with me. Like, I understand. I'm like, I get to be that brother I
yeah,
should have been. I
yeah,
wanted to be.
yeah.
I am now.
Do you teach improv still?
I still, talk about the ensemble, and
Yeah.
now when I talk about my journey, my story, or I go into a conference and do a keynote, I talk about this time when I went into school teaching improv, and I'm
Mhm.
like, and my point is, you know, even way back when I was just doing it because I was a Farley and my brothers all did improv, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it too. I was talking, it was connection. And
Yeah,
even I knew that was the key even before I knew it was the key.
yeah,
I wouldn't have known it was the key until I started to experience connection myself in recovery.
yeah.
Yeah, I just like if the red glasses didn't give it away, I needed attention constantly, and I was getting it. That was
But
great.
you and okay, I also think this is a similarity potentially with, like, the eldest, where we don't like all the attention on us because typically that hasn't been a good thing. Like, usually it's our fault or some fucking, it wasn't like, wow, look at how smart Jacqueline is. Let's all pay attention to that. No, it wasn't that. It's usually something wrong. However, I always like to have an accessory or some sort of flair
Yeah,
that stands out. Yours are your glasses, mine might be a bright colored purse, mine might be my nails, mine might be whatever. But I always had like a little bit of like, here's my individuality,
I
a sprinkle.
I'm I'm literally wearing purple
Yeah.
shoes right now. You can't see them, but
Like, I'm wearing
is that
my Skynet Terminator shirt since everyone fucking forgot what Skynet was, and I'm wearing bluey sweatpants. So, yeah, I just don't fucking care anymore, which is great because it's like I embrace the fact that my style is it can get attention, but it's not like I'm, it's just whatever you wanna pay attention to.
I don't, I used to dress to fit in. Now my oldest daughter's in the fashion. She's out in New York.
Cool.
So we go to a lot of, she's in costume design and she's
Fun.
in, she works for Ralph Lauren in the archive area.
Oh,
Just
cool. Mhm.
really cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's just both sides of the brain kind of thing
Yeah.
going.
Mhm.
And so, but we go, when I see her in New York, we go to these kind of art shows and stuff like that. And I see these, these period costumes, and I'm like, God, I mean, I would look at some of these things. I wish I could wear that.
Yeah.
I don't have to go all Billy Porter, but
Yeah.
I love the flair. Every
Yeah.
like Met Gala, I'm like,
Dress
where's Billy? Where is
I
he?
love dressing up. Like, dressing up is so
Yeah,
fun. Again, it's playing a character. I'm playing a
yeah, totally.
character, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that because my normal self is not as razzle dazzle because I don't have the energy for it. But if someone's like, "Hey, we're gonna do a theme," I'm like, "What is it?" And I'm all in on it.
Well, you know what it might be. I always felt like I was always the book being judged by the cover.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Oh, man, there's so much beneath." Like, that cover is, yeah, it's kinda plain, and maybe this thinking is like, "Okay, I'll give you a cover,
Yeah.
but it still ain't it.
Right.
It still ain't
You're
the
still fucking
story."
wrong, right?
Yeah. "Alright, you
But
want a cover? Here's the
right.
cover."
But that's so true because
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times in my life I have heard, "Oh, when I first saw you, I thought you were gonna be a total bitch, and you're actually really great." I'm like, "Cool,
I know.
thanks for that." So, and that's true. When I first meet someone, I observe. I'm an observer. I
Yeah.
used to like put myself out there and like, "Oh my god, please someone accept me." Now I have learned to restrain myself so I don't waste my energy because that was another thing I would do. I was wasting my energy trying to prove myself to
Oh,
fuckos I didn't fucking care about. So now I'm like, when I meet people, I'm going to just go ahead and observe. And I find that even though people will always get me wrong and get you wrong, they never go, "Yeah, you actually are the shitty person I thought you were." They're always like, "You're actually pretty fucking
like,
great."
one of my favorite stories I tell almost every time I speak to a group is a kind of analogy, or I don't know what you call it, uh, that I found out it was true for me. I know it was true for Chris, that we could be in the middle of a room.
Mhm.
Okay, a bar. Let's be
Mhm. Yeah.
honest. It's a
Mhm.
bar. Middle of the bar, center of attention, surrounded by all these people, making everyone laugh and not feel more like we're standing on the surface of the moon. Like, why
Yes.
is no one seeing this? I'm giving you, you want me to be this funny guy. And,
Right.
as Chris used to say, nobody fears the clown,
Nope.
and,
Mm-mm.
and I was there and like, but why do I feel this way? And the only way I knew to deal with that was to numb it. And
Yeah.
Chris was the same way. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be this, but no one's seeing,
Yeah.
what's behind that. And,
Exactly. When we're talking about, like, substances and all of this stuff, it's hard when people go, "Yeah, and then I went straight into recovery." Like, I just quit cold turkey, but it's like, it's not necessarily like that for people, and
right.
it's a gradual and for you, because I know you had mentioned, like, some time had passed before you were finally like, "Okay, I'm 4 months now." For you, what
But it
was kind of like your I guess not your taper down, I don't mean to call it that, but, like, your phasing out of it? Like, what was kind of like your mentality at the time? Was it just like,
it wasn't a phasing out, it was a phasing in of, like, well, the first time I heard the words rigorous honesty,
mm,
and, as I said, I was
mm,
in marketing and PR as a profession. I was Irish, so I knew the gray areas
right.
of honesty. I lived in the gray areas of honesty, but I'm like, that's rigorous. And that was my way out is this. Yeah, that feels good. Cause like I explain it like back in the day when I would take the train back from the city and back up to Westchester, and I would come in with maybe 2 or 3 little kids at the time, and I would get in at like 7 o'clock at night, and my wife would say, "Did you go out drinking after work?" And I would say, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, look at the package that just walked through the door. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but I only had a few drinks with some people after work. But the reality was I didn't leave at 5 and got home at 7. I left work early at 3 and got
Mm,
home at 7. I didn't have a few drinks. I had a ton of drinks.
yeah.
And so I thought I was being honest by
Mm-hmm.
admitting I was drinking into this. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. And you know
Yeah.
what? So did she. That took a toll on our relationship,
Yeah.
which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so that was the kind of honest
Yeah.
life I was living, not the rigorous honest. And I knew that I had created a life kind of in this gray area. And when I heard rigorous honesty, I'm like, ooh, okay,
Yeah.
that could be it. That could be
Mm-hmm.
the thing for me. And and starting with yourself, being honest with
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's the hardest part because again, it's so easy to judge everyone else. It's so easy to
Yeah.
criticize
And
everyone else.
And to kind of, go full circle to where you were kind of going with that is for me to do that, I need the clarity of sobriety. I just
Yeah.
know because I was that one turns it like it's off the races. There's no
Yeah.
off switch for
Yeah.
me. But recovery isn't sobriety to me.
Yeah.
Recovery is recovery.
Yeah.
And whatever you're doing, even if you're in the harm reduction stage, if as long as you're not using it to mask yourself, it's like
Yeah.
try to be that authentic person. If you're still, that's your goal and that's what you're working for,
Yeah.
stay to that and don't get sidelined by you're not doing it the right way. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
finding your authentic self and
Right.
being your authentic self, what's works for you.
Yeah. And which is also weird because I will say that as we work in this space, and I say the recovery space, which is just broad in general,
Yeah.
it's sometimes hard to turn off my life and my work. Do you get what I mean? Like they're so like intermingled
I
where
have no social life.
where it's like I want to sometimes turn the advocacy like when people are like, just avoid the news, just and it's like
Yeah.
that's kind of like part of my world. Like that I can't have that ignorance, but it also then lends to this idea of I'm just choosing what truth I want to accept and what I don't want to if it gives this.
I go back on the whole kind of back on the 12 step thing, like control what you can control,
Yes.
accept what you can't control.
Do you ever have time where you just there's nothing recovering? It's just your shit. No one knows you as Tom who works for recovery.com. Is there a space where you can just be like existing and not talking about substances or lack thereof or whatever?
I was going to say something really inappropriate.
Oh, please do it, please.
No, I was going to say yes. Yeah, but I gotta go. Then I gotta go to confession. You know. So thanks for leading me
Yeah,
there.
thanks for that.
Yeah, what I learned a long time ago through my brothers is the arts.
Mm,
But I don't go to people are like, "Oh, did you see this comedy?" I'm like, I stopped watching comedies. Like, I can't, I've had enough.
yep.
I lived my life. Now I go to like the weirdest,
Yeah.
craziest movies and exhibits because I want to feed my curiosity.
Yep.
And also I go to find movies that take me on this emotional roller coaster because it's, you know, I was, on a straight parallel even line emotionally for so long that I'm like,
Yeah.
I need the roller coaster. I need
Yes.
to know what this feels like. People used to say like, why are you angry?
Yeah.
Because that's all I knew was anger. And really I was frustrated or
Right.
I was confused or
Exactly.
sad. But I
Sad.
came out as angry because that's all I knew. And
Exactly.
in recovery, I've learned to find these other emotions and understand them and try to build those in me.
Yeah.
And the arts and the weirder it is,
Yeah.
like, it makes me go there. It's kind of like with everything for me, it's leaning into my vulnerability that I built up through, and the walls that I built up throughout my life. And I like it's uncomfortable and painful at first, vulnerability, but then
It's
it opens
freeing.
it up to like, oh my God, this is great.
It's so
As I
freeing.
tell people years ago, you read one Brene Brown book and you're toast. Okay, I get it. I get it.
I
You
get
make
it. Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Exactly.
So, and I did that. I read that. I read about vulnerability. I'm like, that's it.
Yep.
Leaning into that. Yeah.
And I will say though, now that I've been in the world of where you keep up a facade, and now I'm in the world where this is me, there is no facade, it's so much easier mentally for me
Oh,
because I'm not like anxious about whoever might hear this or think of this or whatever. That's just freeing.
what I found out that I was doing is wanting connection and wanting that, but I was adapting me or changing me to the environment, to the people I was
Yes.
trying to connect
Mm-hmm.
with. I
Yes.
was being this person that I was being. That took so much effort. Now it's like, this is me.
Right.
And if I go to, if I go to an environment where that's not accepted or that doesn't fit, like,
Yeah.
I can leave,
Right.
or I
Exactly.
can, I can be curious for a little while, and then I'm
And
like,
then
no,
dip.
I gotta leave. Yeah,
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 exactly. And I love that you say that though, because it was very similar for me where I felt like I had to assimilate to whoever I was with because that
yep.
felt safer than just showing up as myself. Cause then I started again, why I observe at first. I'm like, I'm around a bunch of corporate fucks. I can't talk about things, like I have to assess like what filter I might want to put on depending on, who I'm speaking with. But it's so nice now to just kind of be like, yeah, so these aren't my people. That's okay, and
And the
move on.
first time I learned that, so I went to Georgetown in Washington D.C. in the '80s during the Reagan years, and
Mhm.
I grew up in this very conservative Republican household,
Yeah.
very, Eisenhower kind
Yeah.
of,
Right, right, right.
the long lost
Mhm.
Republicans of yesteryear. And so I grew up and I read all this, National Review subscriptions, and I was all into this. And then I started having kids and, being out in the world and being finally being my own adult. And I'm like, I don't like guns.
Yeah,
I never,
right.
I don't hunt.
Yeah.
I started chipping away at all these platforms. Like, I'm like, like if two people who love each other want to adopt somebody, like, you want that child in
Right.
foster care,
Right.
like, that doesn't make
Exactly.
sense. Or somebody that you've been with 20 years is dying in the hospital, but because you're not family, like, you can't see
Right.
them, like, that made no sense to me.
Arbitrary
I
bullshit.
boomeranged, and all my liberal friends, and I had a few, not many, that I used to get in arguments in college. So they all laugh at me like, how did you get to the left of
Yeah.
me? Like,
How
what
did you
happened
lap
here?
me? One thing I wanna bring up though, because this year, I know you had mentioned you're gonna be traveling again. What sort of travel will you be doing? And is it going to be specifically for work, or are you gonna be doing other stuff outside of recovery.com?
No, it's mostly for recovery.com. And I got to tell you, I just had so much fun on that campus surge,
Yeah.
like going to schools and the thing is, like when Ryan pitched it to me, so like we were going to all these places, and I'm like, that's great. Where you like, this sounds fun. Colleges, great. Where? Arkansas, Reno. I'm like, wait, whoa, huh?
Right.
But I had so much fun,
Mhm.
so I'm going to continue to work with this college recovery movement that I just wasn't there when I
Yeah.
was around. I'm more, so I'm going to continue doing that, but also just really talk about just be an advocate for recovery wherever I can. I mean, as I'm going to a conference coming up, RX Summit in Nashville,
Oh,
talking about
mhm.
the therapeutic use of humor, which is hysterical. Like, as I
Mhm.
said, the
Yeah.
least funny the Farley family is talking about, like,
Whatever.
anybody.
You are the root, the OG. Actually, let me ask
Yeah.
this question. This is a really random question. When you were growing up, watching TV, what TV shows or what movies, like, influenced your humor? and your style of humor?
100% Carol Burnett.
Yes.
We could not get enough
Yes.
of that. Just the ensemble, they were all
Yes.
like cracking each other up. Like that was our family. Like just, you know,
Mhm.
loved that.
Mhm. I was born in '84, so I was, again, a kid watching Carol Burnett, I Love Lucy, and
Yeah.
Golden Girls. That was, like, my senses of humor right there, and then as I got a little bit older and we got cable, then it turned into Mystery Science Theater 3000 because I
Well,
love fucking riffing and just
yeah.
giving commentary.
What was going? They're saying been going on in my head
Exactly.
forever. Like I can't, every conversation, every movie. I'm like, that's.
Yes.
If you peeked in my head, that's what you saw.
Yes. I know we're nearing the end of time. I remember you had mentioned your book, which
Yeah.
had already come out, but I remember you mentioned more follow-up potentially to the book or other
Well,
stuff going on.
yeah. So I sold the rights, so they're gonna make a movie out of it. But it
Wow.
keeps getting pushed off. Like it's so close, but there's so much. There's always something in the industry that's going on. So it's taken some time, but all the pieces are there. Great guy is going to play Chris, Paul Walter Hauser.
Wow.
Josh Gad is going to direct it. Lauren
That's
Michaels is going to
so
produce it.
fucking
So it's
wild.
ready there. The writers who wrote the script, I don't know if you saw, did you see the series Daisy Jones and the Six?
No, it sounds I've seen it, like, in my head mentally, you know what I mean? Like, I see
I
the
don't know what
picture of it.
I'll accept that.
Yeah.
But they wrote that. They
Mhm.
wrote Fault in Our Stars.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So they really understand character development, and
Yeah.
also like Josh Gad said to me at first, like when we first started talking about this, he goes, "I see this as a story of a father and a son." I'm like, "Don't bring my dad into it. Don't do that."
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm like, "No, no, no, no." I was like,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he came back and he goes, there was this 5 years when at the end of his SNL and he was movies where you saw all the talent, but all the demons all at once.
Mm.
And there's 5 years like this thing. And I want to focus on that. And it just reminded me of Bob Fosse. And Josh Gad said, I said to myself, what does Chris Farley's All That Jazz look like? I go, you make that movie. Yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
the greatest movie for my brother.
Yeah.
That's, because he was all this talent, but all these demons. And like,
Yeah.
we need to talk about all of it.
Yeah.
And I love that. So I don't know where, so it's ready to launch. I think, it'll probably go into production mid-year.
Mhm.
But what's great is if I wrote this biography back then, just in my words, here's my story of, I don't, it wouldn't be, I didn't know Chris like I do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So instead, me and my co-author, Tanner Colby, interviewed all the people that we grew up with or Chris grew up with, either that we went to summer camp with, that he went
Wow.
to college with, Second City, SNL, Hollywood. And when I saw the complete work and I read, I'm like, these people knew Chris better than I did.
Yeah. Mhm.
I saw Chris through their eyes, and I think that more than anything, where I was going into schools doing improv before that. Then I did this book and I'm like, I stopped doing that and I wanted to explore this. And it kind of brought me down the road to work on myself too. But I knew there
Yeah.
was something there that people wanted to see.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like, this is weird. Like, people come to me still and say, "Oh, I missed your brother. Your brother was so funny." And there was something I was like, why do I not feel good about that? And I realized that, like, they missed this celebrity. They
Mhm.
weren't missing the brother that I was
Yes.
missing. And I do the work I do because I want people to know that person,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Exactly.
more people are coming. Thank you for, I sense that your brother was like that,
Mhm.
but I get a better sense because I know you're like that.
Like, I've had people I'll still tell stories about my brother probably every fucking day of my life. But he was so funny, but also he's just so ingrained in a lot of shit that I do. And I have friends who never met my brother, or, like, met me after he passed. And the biggest compliment I get is, "I feel like I know your brother so well through the stories you tell about him." And to me, And when they describe him to me based on like what I have said, it's spot on. And so I go, fuck, not only am I being truthful about myself, I'm being truthful
Yeah.
about he was, but a similar situation where I felt initially, God, all his fucking friends knew him better than I did. Because I
Yeah.
also couldn't necessarily be his friend while being his caretaker, while being his
Yeah.
get him off drugs person. He passed in November, and the last time I spoke or saw him was Father's Day. And it wasn't because again we were fighting, and I'm sure you'll understand this. There are just periods when they're going through shit, they're not going to be responsive, they're not going to call, they're not going to whatever. And then there are periods where I'm like, I don't want to deal with this shit. Like I'm actually in a good spot right now, and like I don't want to get pulled into this. And so initially after he passed, I saw all these people, oh, I just talked to Mark last week and I da da da. And I'm like, I don't have that. And
Right.
that fucking sucked. And so then to hear everyone go, oh my God, 2 weeks ago, posting screenshots where this person was like, I'm a week sober. And 2 weeks before my brother's death, he was cheering other people on, trying to get them like, yeah, totally, you've got it. And it's like, it's wild to think that there's a different version that I did not get to see, and I'll learn about
I
him through other people.
and I will say probably there's a version that no one got to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm curious about that. I remember in New York we had a memorial service after Chris died at a church there in New York, and I was sitting with two of his best friends from high school that happened to be also work in New York, so they were very
Yeah.
close. And I was sitting with them. And all these people came up to eulogize Chris. Aykroyd was there.
Mhm.
All these people. But then this guy walks up, and he looks like he just came off the street. This old bit, and Cubs hat on, and he said, "Yeah, I'm Otis. I met Chris. Saw me on the street. I've always flirted with, being, unhoused, and but Chris, found me once and talked to me and took me out to dinner, and then every time after that, when Chris was in town, he'd find me and we'd go out to dinner." And he
Wow.
bought me this Cubs hat. You heard I was a Cub fan. I just was in Chicago and I bought this back for you. And this guy was telling this
Oh my
about
God.
his buddy Chris. And I looked up at these two friends from high school, like, do you know about this guy? They're
Right.
like, no. They're
Right.
like, what the hell, Chris?
Isn't that it's like heartbreaking? Like it's bittersweet. I think
Yeah.
that's the word I use a lot, where it's like, fuck, that is so great to hear. Like what a
Yeah.
great person. And it reinstills like, yes, I'm so glad that someone saw the real, that version of him. But then it's like, fuck, not
I,
everyone got to see that, you know?
Not everyone has it. And this is also an example of Chris continuing to push my buttons of like, be better. You stop.
Hey, you fuck
Be
ass.
God damn it.
Well,
I'm supposed to set the oldest brother sets the example, right? Why is no one
I
following
love
my
that he's like,
example?
did you know that since I'm homeless, Chris tracks me down every single time he comes into town, and he hires a search party? And you're like, cool, thanks, man. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Wow.
I could honestly talk to you forever, and I already know that we're over time. And I know
Let's
you're
do a part two. We
um,
do part two.
I know,
Yeah.
but I want to thank you for coming to talk with me, because we talked about this back in fucking September, and I was like, oh, y'all, I'll get a hold of you in November. It's February,
I
but whatever, that's fucking fine. That's life. And
but I can't tell you what a joy it is to be in these play Reno or like,
yeah,
and seeing you there. I'm like, man, this is
yeah,
gonna be a great.
yeah,
And it all started like I do this, like I'll give you 110% of me, then I got to recharge and go
yeah,
back.
exactly.
And after New Hampshire, I'm like, oh, it's over. I just was on. I'm going back to my thing. And like you and Liz said, like, oh, an hour and let's go get a burger. I'm like, yeah, all right,
Yeah.
I'll see you then. And I got back to my room, like, you dumbass, like, get your ass out there. And I'm so glad I
Yeah,
did. It
I
was
am
so it
too.
was it was it was lean into that. I know you don't
Yes.
want to, but
Mhm.
do it. And oh my gosh, did we have
We did.
it was one of the best discussions. All of us got real
You
honest and real. We had just met each other.
exactly, and the fact that there was no small talk. There wasn't like, "Oh,
No.
what do you think about the weather?" It was like,
Eh,
"What's your deepest, darkest secret?" Like, what have you never told anyone? Like you said, it is so nice to be in company with people who are A, comfortable with themselves, but B, comfortable with the fact that I may not be presenting perfectly right now, but I have the best intentions and you know that. And I find that now, especially with the world that we're in, I tend to gravitate more towards people who are truthful and have not
Yeah.
wavered. Because again, I seek safety and security when things are unstable. And I look at people who have never wavered on who the fuck they were. And like, you're one of those people. Ryan's one of all these, there are these people around me that are those people. And so it's nice to be in company with people who know who the fuck they are.
In the back of my head, I'm like, you don't know who you are. Like, so I need to be around people like that remind me that to do that, because they're accepting me and giving me, permission to be me. I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
this is helping me continue down this path, and very grateful that
Yeah.
we get to do that for each other.
I know. I know. Okay.
It
Bye.
is